Welcome to Everyday Spirituality, a podcast by Connect.Faith. You're listening to a podcast in our Young Leaders series, where we'll hear from young activists who decided to take action in their communities following the death of George Floyd. In this series, you'll hear how and why these young leaders got involved in combating racial injustice. We hope you enjoy. Connect.Faith's tagline is where creativity, spirituality, and justice meet, and today we'll be focusing on the justice aspect. My name is Cali Bronkema, and I'm talking today with Milton Esliker and Humza Mumtaz, two young activists from Pleasantville, New York. I've known these two guys for a long time, but recently they kind of became the face of activism when it comes to racial justice in our small town of Pleasantville. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how that kind of came to be. So let's start with what sparked it. What made you decide that you wanted to do something?
It wasn't something I was actively looking to do. It was more me acting on the past and things that I've been through in Pleasantville and things that I've experienced and other people have experienced. And it was through that, I believe I responded to an Instagram post where someone had posted a Black picture and I kind of called out their hypocrisy. And so it was through that things kind of started going. And I remember asking Humza for help, and he was so willing to help. And, honestly, such a great guy for helping me out with all this. But, that's how things kind of started going with that one response to the Instagram post, and people started asking me to do more. And then other people from towns and school districts started reaching out to me and telling their stories and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's kind of how things started going.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Callie. So basically, I think Milton kind of sums it up. He really got the ball rolling in terms of local activism here. For me, it was kind of like me personally, I kind of I didn't really know what I wanted to do, like career-wise, like particularly like bigger picture stuff. And then obviously the George Floyd incident happened, and then Milton started speaking out about his experiences, and he was really brave to take the lead on that. I thought, like, he really came out, and a lot of people close to us were telling him, like, maybe Milton, like, maybe this isn't the best way to do it, maybe, like, chill out, you know what I mean? But I thought he was really brave to to say, no, like, enough is enough. I need to be honest about what I experienced, what my family experienced.
So Milton, you started this through social media, correct? And you mentioned, you said the hypocrisy of the Black square. Do you want to talk about, for people who don't know what the Black square means, like just what that whole frenzy kind of was?
I believe it was June 7th and it was Tuesday, and it was maybe a week after the George Floyd murder had happened. And people all around the United States began rallying and declaring that June 7th, Tuesday, would be Blackout Tuesday. And as a way to show solidarity for the murder and Black Lives Movement and for Black people in the country, people started posting Black squares. And that was all you would post that day, were Black squares, and you wouldn't post anything else. And it was really cool to see how Instagram, Facebook, it was kind of all filled with Black squares. No one was really posting anything. And that was kind of what we wanted. It was kind of to show people that, we're here, we're fighting, we're not going to stop. And so, I was scrolling through Instagram, liking all of these pics, and then I found one kid in my school. And that's how, I began this crusade. But the Black square was important because for me to see that there were people who I know in the past who have been very, very racist outwardly, for me to see them posting that square was, I don't even know how to make it. It just made me feel all types of wrong. It didn't feel right to me. And it's the same, that's just one person, right? And we could talk about people. I'm talking about corporations too. Like you would see Nike, you saw Gucci, you saw all these big brands who have history of racial insensitivity posting these squares. And I was like, but why? This is just for show. And that hypocrisy didn't sit well with me. And it still doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah. Like a bit of performative action. Yeah.
Yeah, I think kind of going off that, kind of Milton, I think what kind of gave me like kind of almost an epiphany of like what was going on around us was I remember when our friend Adam CC sent us a video of a girl at a Greeley High School, and a bunch of white boys were saying the N-word repeatedly, and that just kind of like, because it had been a while since I had been in high school, since Pleasantville High School, obviously, so that kind of just like, I remember sitting there doing my work, and it kind of just shook me that like this stuff is still going on, and we're just sat here doing nothing. Kind of, we're just basically sat here doing nothing. And I'm like, and Milton always says it because no one was doing anything. You know, I mean, no one was doing anything. People were like talking about it, a bunch of like, PR stunts, like exactly like what Milton was talking about, all these corporations, but no one was actually doing anything. So that's why, well, we just felt like we kind of had to like start somewhere at least.
So it kind of motivated y'all to say, I'm done with this. Like it's time to actually do something. So what were your next steps then? Like what did you do, and how did you decide to take that route?
So basically we kind of wrote a letter to the leadership that we knew, the like the high school, the middle school, the BRS leadership, and local town leadership as well, the assemblymen, the congressmen, stuff like that. And we got some positive replies, some no replies, obviously. And so we just went with what we had, and that was Mr. Palumbo at the high school helped us a ton. He spent a lot of time with us this summer working on specific reform things that we could change within the social studies department, English department, and obviously on the teacher side, which is the most important side, really. So yeah, that was a start. And then from there, we also got so many contacts just through personal families and friends that we knew, particularly that Milton knew.
It was quite difficult and daunting figuring out what the next steps were, especially after I kind of stopped posting on social media, because I didn't want the fire to die, but I didn't exactly know how to go about doing that. And so, I listened to a lot of advice to a lot of my elders, to a lot of my peers. And, like Humza said, we reached out to a lot of to a lot of local leadership and people we thought could help us inspire change. And, that was one of the things that I wanted to make clear, is that, within our movement, at least in the beginning, I wanted to remove ourselves from Black Lives Matter because I didn't want to fix the world. Mm-hmm. I wanted to fix our town because I knew that I could change that. That was something I could do right now. And so that was our main goal, and that's still our main goal. And I feel like it's kind of growing county-wide now, at least.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I think, a lot of people's first thought is let's go straight to protests, or let's get as many people gathered to show solidarity as we can, which is a totally valid option. But you guys kind of went opposite and said, let's start small. Let's start with what we know and then kind of build from there. That's really cool. So you said you started by reaching out to local leaders. You mentioned Mr. Palumbo, who's the principal of the high school in our town. What were the reactions of those leaders? Were they willing to talk to you? Were they kind of saying yes, but clearly nervous? How did those conversations go?
I'm smiling right now, Cali, because like it was a mixed bag. You know what I mean? Like, It reminds me of a conversation we had with Miss Colleen Wagner, who's a wonderful woman who helped us out so much. Like I learned so much from her. But she told us basically, along this route that we're taking, like whilst we're talking to these leaders, the powers that be, like we have to kind of educate them whilst we're trying to have them educate everyone else. And that's something that did come up certain times. Like I remember there was definitely microaggressions within certain meetings towards Milton, and I remember thinking, like, in the moment, like, here we go again, like, how do we handle this? Do you know what I mean? Like, here we have these people that are said to be in positions of power, and they are willing to talk to us. So at what point do we like, it's almost like back in high school when your friend makes a racist joke. It's like, at what point do you just laugh it off, or do you make an issue about it? It was almost similar to that. But that being said, that was quite a cynical start to that answer. But that being said, most of the vast majority of the adults and leaders that we spoke to were very open and very receptive and willing to let us kind of take the lead on it as well, which is what which I appreciated.
Very comical sometimes, because it was, within having conversations about racism, there would be a microaggression.
Yeah.
Or something.
At times.
Exactly. And it just made me realize how much, I have to learn and how much everyone else has to learn. Like, it's all a learning process. That's what it is. You have to unteach yourself these things, because, people aren't born this way. This is how society molds us. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the things I got away from that mixed bag of people. It's all a learning process.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that when having these conversations about race, there's definitely a tendency for some white people to be afraid to speak their mind, because they don't want to upset or offend anyone, they're not super comfortable around people of color at times because they're afraid to offend them. But I think it's important to still try to be as honest as you can, kind of, because it starts with, you have to learn, like you have to be honest with yourself. And if that's looking yourself in the mirror and being like, yeah, I've said racist things, I've done racist things, maybe I'm racist, like, but you can change or something, so, like, I'm definitely not an expert on it, but I think it's important to know that people can change, and that starts from self-reflection.
Yeah, and you guys mentioned things like microaggressions, things that, that term in itself might not be something that everybody has heard of, but coming to recognize, like, all those times, and I like what you said about being honest with yourself, because you're not going to get past that unless you're honest with yourself. I also loved what you said about kind of the weird duality of having to educate some of those people that educated you, that you grew up with as your educators. That's, really interesting to think about. All right. Thank you guys so much. I have to do my little outro. So,
thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
This has been Everyday Spirituality, a podcast with Connect.Faith. Thank you all for listening and joining.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly.